Juanita James here. I am so excited for my next guest. He is the educator of the educators. He is a platform artist. He is a school owner, barbershop owner, salon owner. He's just a man of all talent. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to Tyrik Jackson. Hey,
Thank you.
Tyrik.
Hey, what's up, Juanita? Thank you so much for your kind introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you all for listening. It's a pleasure to be here. These interviews have been happening more rapidly since we have been in, quarantine. So it's definitely, I definitely appreciate you guys selecting me to be a part of your segment.
Yes, yes. I would really like for you to tell the audience like how your career has been. You've won so many different awards. You have been a platform artist for so long. What really gave you the love and the passion for being an educator, a barber, you're a barber, and also you own two barbershops
Mhm.
and a school, correct?
Yes.
So,
So a lot of that had to do with just the willingness to serve other people. How I got introduced to the industry is through serving. And as I continued to progress, I realized that serving other people not only helped to create doors, opportunities, and relationships, it really put me in a position of success. It began to open doors. And every time I continued to serve different people in different facets of this industry, just more doors and more doors were open to me. And I went with the heart and the desire to help. What is it that I can offer someone else, not so much what I can get from it. And as a result, I was getting things. Things were happening.
awesome, awesome. When did you actually enter the industry, the beauty industry?
So I've been in the industry over, close to 28 years. I started in the barbershop when I was about 16. I'm sorry, like 15 years old, going into the barbershop and just being introduced to the actual culture of the barbershop. I was singing in a talent show for Black History Month. A gentleman gave me a ride home, and I wanted to thank him for that, And when I took that ride, one of the things that I said is I got to figure out how I can repay him for just serving me. And I went to the barbershop that Monday. Shop was traditionally closed. I went back on Tuesday. When I went back Tuesday, I walked in. I was welcomed with open arms. He was saying, "Hey, this is the kid I was talking about," so forth and so on. And I just, I started sweeping up and cleaning up. And I said, "Look, I just wanted to show my appreciation for giving me a ride home." And then I negotiated a haircut every Tuesday to clean the windows. And
Okay.
so I was serving and being served at the same time. So it was just a creative way to just, first it was really about the serving part, but then I saw the windows needed done and a guy came in to clean the windows and I was like, well, I can do that, And I said, if I do that, would you give me a haircut? And he said, sure. I've never cleaned windows before, but I knew how to clean glass because my mom, on Saturday morning with Shaka Khan playing, you know, yeah, you clean the tables with some Windex and some newspaper. So I had an idea on how to do it.
Okay. So Sharper Image is the name of your barbershop. You have 1 and 2, Sharper Image.
Yeah, I actually closed down the second location at the beginning of this year, the end of last year. On purpose. I put like a budget tool together that I give barbers and professionals in the industry to help them manage their finances. It is a free budget tool. You could download that on the Tyrik Jackson app. And in that budget tool, I really used it as a catalyst to make that decision. I put each shop and all their expenses. I put both locations. What would it look like if I kept them both? What would it look like if I kept one of them, if I kept the larger one or the smaller one? And what I needed to do in order to make that a successful transition. So we made a decision this year to shut down our second location, which we had for 15 years. It just made more sense to minimize and maximize our minimum, if you will. We made some renovations and was able to accommodate more people in the smaller space, less overhead, location. We've been there longer than anything. The other one. So it just made a lot of financial sense.
Okay. And your school, can you tell me a little bit about your school?
Yeah, so my school is the only Title IV funded barbering program in the greater Philadelphia area. We focus mostly primarily on barbering. However, we teach all facets of our industry. I mean, we pull out the Marcel ovens and use real Marcel curling irons. We do relaxers and perms, and we do hair color, and we do traditional barbering. We also serve the community. We serve some VA. We do Chosen 300, both of their locations, and service them. Our students do, and they service them every month. Um, so we do a lot of different things to benefit haircuts in need, and at the same time teaching our students how to be professionals in this industry.
Yes.
Um, the reason that I became a school owner, though, is probably where this whole idea of wanting to own and operate a school comes from. When I was in cosmetology school, see, there wasn't any barber schools in my area.
Okay.
And I told my mom right before I graduated from high school, this is what I wanted to do. I told my English teacher in 10th grade, like, I was going to become a barber one day. And he said, "You're an excellent writer. I think you should just do writing, go to college, write. I write for the newspaper. You could write for magazines. There's a lot of things." I said, "No, that's your dream. That's not my dream."
Right.
And he told me that my dream wasn't big enough. And so he just thought that I was thinking too small. And I said, one day when I graduate from here, I'm going to go work at Champs. I'm going to get my license, and I'm going to open up a barbershop. Well, in 96, 95, when I graduated from high school, I went right into cosmetology school because there were no barbering schools.
Okay.
The newspaper came in, did an article, because we were the first mother and son to attend school together. My mom applied with me. So we went to school
That was
together.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as an 18-year-old kid, I didn't think that was going to be the coolest thing because, I'm 18. I'm trying to move out the house. Mom's following me outside of the house. It was like, when are you going to allow me to spread my wings? But she did a good job. We built a strong bond and a strong relationship through that. And the interesting thing was, the first day of school before we got there, I said, "Listen, Mom, let's not tell everybody that, you my mom. Let's take our time with that." And she said, "Okay, whatever." So first day, we section the mannequins, do a 0-degree haircut, blow dry style the mannequin. And I've never cut with shears on that level. So that was my first time in college school cutting with shears. I was already doing some apprenticeship work and cutting at the house and things like that. So when I did that first haircut, the first thing I yelled was like, "Mom!" I was so proud of my work. So the first day, she walks over real quietly to me and she goes, "Now, you done messed up, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And so
Right, you were so excited.
you could hear a pin drop. Everyone like stopped, the blow dryers turned off, and I started sweating like, oh my gosh. But we got through that and everyone laughed. So the newspaper came in as a result of that time, because they explained, like, wait a minute, mother and son, like, this is cool.
Okay.
We've never had that. Now, the director of the school knew, but the instructors and the students didn't know. So great marketing for the school, great catalyst for me, because they asked me a series of questions. One of the questions was, how do you feel being a male in an all-women industry? And the question in the newspaper, I still have the newspaper article, was, do you feel that your masculinity is in question? And so my mom was like, "No, he knows exactly." I'm like, can I answer the question? And which is why I didn't want to go to school with my mom.
Right.
But no, I said, "No, I really just want to cut hair, so it doesn't matter whether you're
Okay.
cutting older women and doing perms and doing nails, because of the ultimate goal was to cut hair." And
Right.
that was the only way I could get licensed to practice in something that I wanted to do. That was what I was going to do. So a lot of times we put ourselves in positions, and sometimes in those positions we have to do things that we don't necessarily want to do to get to where we want to go. And I knew that at an early age, so I made the sacrifice to go to school. And they asked me another question. They said, "What do you want to do when this is done?" And I said, "I'm going to graduate from here. I'm going to work at Champs. I'm going to open up my own shop. One day I'm going to get my teacher's license, and then I'll be able to make the big bucks and make a better impact in our industry. And I held on to those words. And so that became the motivating factor. You know, I did graduate. I went to work for Champ for about 8 years. I opened my first location in 2003, Sharper Image Barbershop. In 2005, I opened my second location. And when I opened the second location, I ended up hiring my English teacher's son.
Okay.
One that said that my dream wasn't big enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's an awesome,
yeah,
example of what can happen in regards to when you hold on to your vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you so you have a platform, Tyrik Talk Tuesdays,
Mm-hmm.
and that's every Tuesday live on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Because I know, I'm sorry for cutting in, but I know that you have a lot to offer beauty professions. But let's get back to Tyrik Talk Tuesday.
So Tyrik Talk Tuesday started because I'm serving the industry. I'm serving our students, and every day before theory would start, we'd spend about 10-15 minutes on something that would be thought-provoking, mind exercises, something that would help to encourage the learning process before we dove into the material that we were covering. And where I got that from was, as a kid, my mom would put Post-its on our bathroom window. Mm-hmm. And on the bathroom window or the mirror, on the door before we walked out of our bedroom, just any place that we would see, it would be words of encouragement, a Bible verse, I love you, you're the most special thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And it would help to start our day. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I would say I would do something similar to that, and I would get the students involved, and then we would move on with the rest of our topic. So for example, if we were talking about changes, and maybe the quote had to do with changes, that day we may have been talking about color. So then I'll say, since we're talking about changes, let's focus into the subject matter. And in that subject matter, we are focusing on color and how we as professionals can create change to hair. And so it started because I was doing a piece on forgiveness and how not having forgiveness can really affect the growth of your business and you personally as an individual.
Yeah.
And while this was going on, one of the students was like, hey, Instagram is now live. You might as well take this information live. One of the students was like, no, we pay a lot of money to come here. She says, no, you pay money to learn how to be a barber and a professional. This information should be shared throughout the world. And I was like, well, and she says, no, you tell us all the time, we need to adapt, we need to innovate, we need to adjust to the things that are transitioning in the world. And this is a transition, and I think you need to do it. So I fought her tooth and nail. I was like, no. She said, I'm going to grab your phone. We're going to go live. We went live. It just so happened to be a Tuesday morning. And I said, the thing is that, when I start doing stuff, I got to be consistent with it.
Right.
That's like one of my challenges, because I know that I'm going to commit and I don't want to overextend myself. So we went live. It was like 12 people on it. It wasn't a lot of people, about 12 people. And I was excited. I was like, man, we got 12 people watching the live. Like, this is awesome.
Wow.
So what we did was the next day I went into the DMs and people were speaking. And one of my evening instructors, the day of the live, she would come in the daytime. She was always at night. She came in for some reason really early in the day. I was teaching the theory and I was talking about forgiveness, and she said, I want to chime in. And she talked about how she was violated as a little girl, and she had to understand forgiveness in order for her to be successful and move on in life. So it just tied right in. A little emotional, but you can feel that she was empowered, and it wasn't that she was still holding on. There was a true growth experience for her. And so those were the direct messages I was getting on Instagram. So on Wednesday, I went to school and I said, hey, look at these comments. And her name was Elena Cook, was my student. She said, awesome. And she says, we're going to call it Tyrik Talks Tuesday. I was like, no, we're not doing that. And so Monday comes, And she says, I can't wait for tomorrow. And I'm like, well, what's tomorrow? She said, you don't know. I was like, no. She goes, Tyrik Talks Tuesday. I was like, no. We're not going to continue to have this conversation. She goes, well, I'll be waiting. I'll be ready. You know, I know you're going to be ready. So we just going, you know, that's how we're going to do it. So the next morning I woke up, I said, okay, I'm just going to go with it. And so we just continued to do it for a series of months. Several months later, she had passed away. And so Tyrik Talk Tuesdays is special, not just because someone encouraged me to do it, but the impact that it was leaving on other people's lives. And so it's really, really important to continue to do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about her.
Yeah, Elena, she was the bomb.
Wow. Okay. Now, can you tell me where did the X factor can come in at?
So in 2004, going into 2000, well, it was 2005. 2005, I was invited to do Bronner Borthers Hair International, the largest multicultural show in the world. And I was asked to compete because in 2004, I submitted some photos from a magazine for a magazine to different organizations. And what happened was those photos got across the desk of the show coordinator for Bronner Brothers. And they said, this is a barber who's performing these types of services. And, you know, I got called by Glenn Jackson, who does a huge show in DC. And Glenn Jackson said, hey, look, these people at Bronner, they want you to compete for the $25,000 battle. Is that something you would like to do? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, why not? I said, well, it's not that I wouldn't want to do it. It's just not my heart's desire to compete. I've never been a person that wanted to compete.
Right.
And he says, well, give them a call. I'll send the information your way. I'll send it to them, so forth and so on. And so they contact me and they say, hey, would you like to compete? And, you know, I entertained the thought. I didn't shut it down immediately. And they said they were going to send me a disc and some DVD back when you was getting DVDs, you know what I mean?
Right.
Sent me a DVD of the competition and what it looked like. And they basically were saying, hey, if you wanted to compete in this competition, this is the level that you would have to perform. And, you know, I entertained the conversation a couple of times. I did tell them no 2 times.
Okay.
And they weren't hard nosed. They were like, I don't know, nose, you know. And her name was Erica Washington. And she contacted me and she says, hey, Tyrik, you know, we haven't seen barber who performs and cuts in the way that you do. We want to showcase that to the world. Why is it that you wouldn't want to compete at my show? Mm-hmm. And I said, it has a lot to do with the fact that I don't want to compete. It's not my heart to compete. She says, what do you want to do? And that was an important question because it taught me how to leverage and be creative. I said, well, I want to teach. It's what I want to do. And she says, well, why didn't you say that? I said, because you asked me about competition. She said, well, she said, if you wanted to teach, then just let me know. She says, I have the power to give you a classroom at my shows. We do one in Baltimore. We do twice a year in Atlanta. Is that what you would like? And I said, absolutely. She says, I'll tell you what, I'll promise you a teaching class if you would commit to my show. I said, you got a deal. And
okay.
So I competed. I was the rookie. Nobody knew of me. So I was the underdog, but I did photo shoots to market myself effectively for that competition, for that show, submitted them to the company. They was posting my work in the show magazine on their website. And so when you went to a show, you got a pamphlet, and that pamphlet had Tyrik and all of his work. So that way it would prepare people that this guy's going to be competing this week. And because my hair cutting style looked unique, I created a really quick fan base. We didn't have social media back then.
Right.
And so you had to really spend money on photographers and things like that to be seen. And so I competed in 2006, and just on the stage, the commentator, his name was Tim Johnson. He said, we call him the X Factor. And I was like, okay, you know, okay. From the back. So he just kind of just blurted it out. He was like, ladies and gentlemen, coming next to the stage, you know, started dropping some of my accolades. And he was just like, you know, we call him the X Factor, a Golden Scissor recipient, barber winner. Please make some noise for Tyrik Jackson. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm the X factor right now. So.
Right. Okay. You have a lot of accomplishments, and you've done a lot. You service your community, your church.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot for young people, so you definitely have a heart to service,
Mm-hmm.
and mentor, and also coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what does that entail? Because I know that you have also, can you tell us a little bit about your products that you offer to professionals before you talk about the coaching aspect of everything?
Yes. So when you talk about products, there is a product I'm in partnership with my friend. He was a client of mine. Um, a few years back, his son had an aneurysm. It's called AVM, and that aneurysm ruptured in his brain. The best way to sort of describe it is, imagine trying to untangle um, a bunch of hoses that are wrapped together, and you turn
Mm-hmm.
on the water and they're kind of stuck. And because they don't know which way to go, there's a pinch in it, when you got a pinch in the hose. So once that, if you can't remove it, if there's too much pressure, it bursts. So it's an aneurysm basically, but it's called an AVM because the veins and nerves that move the blood, they weren't thick enough, they weren't strong enough, and so his brain started hemorrhaging, and he basically died on a family trip. He threw his son in his arms. They raced to the hospital. They revived him, and his son wasn't the same, but it put things in perspective. And so we live by this code, the dash. What do you do? What do you do in your dash? And so it's a series of products, and it's called Dash. So
Okay.
you have two numbers on your tombstone: the time you was born and the time you die. The most important part is what you did in the dash. And so Dash is the name of the product. Um, the current product we're moving is Dash for Him. So it's beard and grooming products for men. It's a phenomenal product. It's been very, we were selling it in the barbershop before we actually branded it and labeled it and did the whole packaging and the trademarking and the marketing campaign behind it. But it's been very great. It's helped him with his family, helped to put things, put food on the table, because he had to quit his job to take care of his now, son who had special needs. They said his son wouldn't walk again. His son walks. They said his son wouldn't talk again. His son talks.
Good.
And so, he's not the same kid.
Right.
However, he does understand, and he knows that his healing came because Jesus saved him and healed him. So it's an amazing story. So that's where the products come from.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you're teaching packages and stuff like that. Could you tell us a little bit about the packages that you have for professionals to help us promote, to help us market?
Mm-hmm.
You also have a scheduling app?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about all the products that you offer as far as your teaching packages, your app, everything that you are like.
Well, I didn't grow up with a phone in my hand like some of these kids.
Right.
I grew up when VHS and beta, videos were before VHS. I remember the transition of how music was distributed, how movies were distributed. I remember going to Blockbuster Video to rent a movie and be
Right.
kind and rewind, and then you took that video back. And that whole idea of how we received movies and how movies were distributed, I seen the transition and the change. So I understand the importance of adaptability. Blockbuster doesn't no longer exist because they didn't adapt. Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore because they didn't adapt. And so in order for us as professionals to be able to stay and have longevity in our industry, we have to be willing to adapt. We're in an ever-changing industry. We either change with it or you die from it. You don't adapt, you begin to lose. You lose barbers, you lose your stylists, you lose the personnel that you have, you lose your business, you downsize your business. There's a lot of things that happens. Not that downsizing is bad, but you don't want to downsize because you're forced to downsize. You downsize because you make a personal decision to downsize. And like I was fine with both locations, but I downsized because it was a better business decision for me because I can put most of my energy into my school and not so much the shops. So it
I
was.
think you're a little unique than a lot of people. Sorry for interrupting,
No, that's
Tyrik,
fine.
but I think that, I mean, you're a professional in the industry and you've been in it for almost 30 years. I mean, you've had to see the shift
Mm-hmm.
for people that was not really brought up in the industry the way that we were, knowing how to keep a clientele, don't know how to build a clientele. You talk about employees all the time. So, and the shift in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
you have over and over and over again recreated yourself in so many
Mm-hmm.
different aspects of the industry that you use the tactic that you can stand on.
Mm-hmm.
And we do try to go ahead. I'm gonna let you.
No, it's fine. I'm processing what you're saying, but a verse came to mind is that he that have an ear, let him hear. And when God said to move, he said, he just moved, don't question it. And technology sometimes can be extremely frustrating. It can, if you don't understand it and you don't understand the language. Think of a person who goes to a different country. If you've ever traveled and been to different countries, you can get very frustrated when you're looking for directions or trying to find some place to eat, or you don't know where to go. And say you're at the beach and you want jet skis and you're trying to, and they're looking at you like, I don't know what you're saying. It's because there's a challenge in the communication. Effective communication is only important when the other person can comprehend what you're saying. If they can't comprehend what you're saying, then you're doing a lot of you're doing a lot of sign language that you don't know, and they're looking at you like you crazy, and then you walk away like they stupid, like they don't know what I'm saying. And in reality, you're in their foreign land. And so technology for some of us, especially our seasoned, is what I would call us, seasoned, mature entrepreneurs, professionals, or practitioners, we haven't adapted because we've been so creative working with our hands that we haven't paid attention to what's happening around us. And as a result, we started disconnecting. We stopped going to the shows. We stopped listening to our peers. And then when a child or your teenager, your grandchild, whatever, wants something, it's like, I ain't messing with that. I don't know how to mess with that. Like like grabbing the phone. This how old people do stuff on the phone. They pull it up and they go, and they take a look at it and they be like, hey, baby, come here, baby. I don't know how to do this. Can you do this real quick for me? And, we just haven't adapted to technology. So for me, having longevity is just understanding that you need to adapt and shift and being able to pivot. Pivot is important. In sports, basketball is up and down. However, you have to move side to side. And if you get trapped, you have to be able to pivot and move around because adversity is going to come. And so understanding that you need to shift in our industry and what we do has a lot to do with your ability to shift during adversity, being able to pivot when something comes to block you. It's not a matter of I can't do it, but how am I going to do it? Because the goal in basketball is to score, right? That's the goal. The goal in football is to get up and down the field and score a touchdown, and so when things get in the way, when the defense is or the opposition is blocking you, how do you get through that? Because the objective is to score. Does that mean I got to pass it? Does that mean I got to run it myself? Does that mean I have to kick it just to, for now to hold them back? So it's really about adjusting and pivoting. And so I've been able to adjust and pivot.
Hey, you guys, thank you for watching Clip It. This episode with Tyrik Jackson was off the hinges. We are going to finish this episode with Tyrik Jackson, Mr. X Factor, and you do not want to miss it. Tune in for the next episode, and Tyrik Jackson will be back with us next week. So please tell your friends and family you do not want to miss Clip It.